All right, two assignments on this video. First one is complex number conjugates. This is an extremely easy assignment. All right, this is almost like a vocab lesson. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to plot its complex conjugate. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, a complex number has two parts, right? It has the real part and the imaginary part. If I have a complex number that is 3 plus 3i, its conjugate is the same, except the imaginary part is the opposite. All right, so this is the conjugate of that original. Real easy, right? We just changed the imaginary part. So when we look at a graph, we notice z1 is at the coordinates -4, -2. It's like saying this is the complex number, -4 plus -2. Well, the conjugate of that would be -4 plus a positive 2i. And where can we chart that? Well, let's go over -4 and let's go up to 2. That's the conjugate. The conjugate is just a reflection over the real axis, which is what we usually call the x-axis. Now, we're going to use that conjugate on the other assignment. In order to divide complex numbers, we have to use the conjugate. All right, this is kind of a complex operation. So we have to, first of all, divide the following complex numbers and end up with another complex number. All right, the way we're going to do it is we're going to rationalize, okay? And we'll talk about this in other sections as well, but the way to do it is to use the conjugate. We're going to multiply by the conjugate of the bottom every time. So when we look here, we're going to multiply by the conjugate of that number, that complex number. We're going to multiply by it on the top and the bottom. And it seems kind of weird because why would you multiply something by the top and the bottom? All right, so our goal on the bottom is to turn this into something that we can simplify, like a real number, which it will always be. All right, so always focus on the bottom. What's the conjugate of the bottom? Okay, it's 4 plus 4i. Now let's multiply the same way we did in the last lesson. We're going to have to distribute. That's 96i and 96i squared. All right, let's do the same thing on the bottom, and then we'll clean it all up all in one step. All right, on the bottom, that's 16. You'll notice a pattern that happens on the bottom when we do these. All right, now let's kind of clean up everything. First off, on the top, we can combine these. That will turn into, let's see, positive 64i. Also, we can combine this and this, just like in the last lesson, right? I squared makes this number the opposite of what it is, so minus 96. So negative 32 minus 96. Let's clean up the bottom. If you've done it correct on the bottom, you should notice that the middle gets canceled out every time, right? Those two things add up to 0. Also, just as a coincidence, this time each of these are 16. That's not always going to happen. Let's just change this, right? This should be now plus 16 because of the I squared. If we combine those two, we're left with just a number. right, which is our goal in the beginning, so that we can simplify this and just end up with a real number on the bottom. That way we're not left with another complex number over another complex number. From here, we can typically reduce. Not always, but in this case we can. So we're going to divide each one of these numbers here by 32. So 128 over 32, well, that's 4, and it's negative 4. And 64 over 32 is 2. And that's our answer. When we divide complex numbers, we're going to end up with a complex number. All right, kind of a long process. Take your time. Feel free to rewind, redo this video. You can also always watch a video or use a hint from Khan Academy as well.